Sometimes leaving one promotion for another seems like a good idea, only for things to turn out completely different. Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 9 wrestlers who regretted leaving the WWE. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more videos like this. Number 1. Bret Hart. Bret Hart was for all intents purposes similarly shown the door when Vince McMahon decided he didn't want to honour his 20-year contract with Hart, forcing Hart to work a deal with WCW. Be sure to check out our 3-part Behind the Titantron episode of the Montreal Screwjob for more details. That is if by now you're the one person who doesn't know the backstory. While Hart's WWF exit couldn't have been handled much worse, hence the name Montreal Screwjob, his WCW debut served as a harbinger of his WCW woes. After interfering in the Sting vs Hollywood Hulk Hogan main event at 97 Starrcade to protest a phantom fast 3 count by referee Nick Patrick, Hart found himself drifting aimlessly in WCW as he struggled to get a consistent push and instead was put in nonsensical programs. Although to be fair, that was par for most of WCW at the time. Ultimately, Hart's career was cut short after a botched kick from Bill Goldberg concussed the Hitman, forcing him to retire. As bad as Hart's exit from the WWF was, it paled to the disaster known as his WCW career. Number 2. Tony Schiavone. Ask announcer Tony Schiavone what the biggest mistake of his career was, and he'll tell you it was leaving the WWF after working there for just 1 year. During an appearance on the Edge and Christian podcast, Schiavone shared a story he's told many times before. I tell ya, I've said this before, it's a decision I regret to this day. I really do, I had a great year at the WWF. I learnt so much about television production. They had me as the producer of their home videos at the time, which was their Coliseum videos. I learned a lot, built some friendships with people who still work up there in production, who I'm still friends with. I've had a great life here in Georgia, met some great people, did some other sports, but if I could do it all over again, I would never have left. I wish I would have even given it another year or 2 years. My wife is from the south, so I'm not sure if she would have adapted, but my family probably would have adapted. The happiest time I spent were not doing voiceovers, not doing pay-per-views, it was in the edit suite creating the videos. We did little vignettes with Gene Okerlund and the Bushwhackers with Jimmy Snuka. I enjoy doing stuff like that. Schiavone returned to WCW, working there until its 2001 demise, then working as an announcer for minor league sports teams. Tony now works in AEW as a play-by-play commentator for AEW Dynamite. Number 3. Rikishi. After several unsuccessful WWF gimmicks, Solofa Fatu Jr. seemed to have hit the jackpot when he began working as Rikishi, Too Cool's dancing partner whose popularity suggested a potential singles career. However, when that failed to happen, Rikishi left the WWE, working the independent circuit as well as a brief run in TNA. Fatu worked in TNA only to find himself at odds with the company over a pay request. After a short stint in TNA, Rikishi languished on the indie circuit before coming back to the WWE for occasional appearances and an induction into the WWE Hall of Fame. Number 4. Sergeant Slaughter. Sergeant Slaughter was at the height of his popularity when he butted heads with Vince McMahon, with one story being Slaughter wanted time off, while another being the WWE opposed Slaughter's involvement with Hasbro's G.I. Joe action figure line. At the time, the WWF was working on its own line of action figures. After leaving the WWF in 1984, he settled in the AWA where he worked as a top star, but it wasn't the same as the AWA was slowly dying. Still, Slaughter had fond memories of becoming immortalized as a G.I. Joe action figure. Well, I knew of G.I. Joe, but by the time I went into it, I wasn't really watching it. And when I was asked to be the first living G.I. Joe character in its 30-year history at that time, that meant a lot. The first living G.I. Joe. Not an animated character, it took a real person to put them in the animation. So at the time, it was a pretty big honor. But I didn't realize it was going to be as big as it is today. Whenever I do autograph sessions and meet people around the country at hospitals or veterans hospitals, children hospitals and different charity events, I do. It's a pretty big thing when they give you the Yo Joe. Slaughter returned to the WWF in 1990 in the infamous angle where he played an Iraqi sympathizer, winning the WWF Championship from the Ultimate Warrior before dropping it to Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 7. Number 5. Booker T. Following a wellness policy violation in 2007, Booker T left the WWE after obtaining a release for himself and his wife going to work for TNA. Booker worked there from 2007 to 2010, but according to King Booker, there wasn't much work involved. During a 2017 talk on his radio program Heated Conversations, he shared his experience working for TNA. TNA was like a vacation, you know what I mean? That's why I don't give it a whole lot of props, man. Because it was like a vacation, man. It wasn't like I was really working for that money, man. You know what I mean? I was only working like 50 days a year. I had a 2-year contract, you know what I mean? It was in Disney. You know, we went to do the tapings down there, so I was on the rides half the time when I was supposed to be working. You know what I'm saying? So it was a nice vacation. It was cool working for TNA. It was great. Although Booker had mixed feelings about TNA, he soured on working in Global Force Wrestling, apparently feeling the company did not take care of its stars. Booker spoke of an incident in which he was asked to make a media appearance and drive there on his own, an experience much different than what he was used to. Picked up at the airport, brought to the arena, took back to the hotel. They got a basket in the room with all kinds of fruits and Red Bulls and all that kind of stuff in it. And you guys are a major company and you want me to drive myself around? I'm like, come on. That's not the way you do business. And I really think that's one of the reasons why TNA is in the dire straits they are right now. Booker returned to the WWE in 2011, appearing at the Royal Rumble and transitioned from the ring into a role as color commentator. Number 6. Dustin Rhodes. The artist formerly known as Goldust was wrestling with personal demons when he returned to TNA in 2007, adopting the identity of a wrestler with a split personality named Dark Reign. This lawyer-friendly version of Goldust was anything but entertaining, and Rhodes' time in TNA saw his personal life spiral out of control. In his memoir Crossroads, Goldust, Out of the Darkness, Dustin recalled, "Eventually, and thanks to my dad, I started working for Total Nonstop Action for $1,000 a show. He was the boss right under Dixie Carter. TNA wasn't doing too well at that point, but I had a job making okay money. I could drive home just about every night. All I was doing was what little I had to do in the ring, then hanging out, spending my money on coke, pills and booze. I was probably taking close to 40 pills a day at the end. I was so desperate that I actually bought pain pills from drug dealers because I would run out long before I could find another doctor to write a prescription. If I dropped a pill and it fell into the carpet, I would spend hours on my hands and knees trying to find it. At the same time I was drinking so much, I'd wake up dizzy and unable to walk." Dustin eventually straightened his life out, returning to WWE in 2018, but now he works in AEW with his brother Cody. Number 7. The Big Boss Man. "Man, the boss is big," Tony Schiavone's comments on Ray Traylor, who enjoyed uppercard success in the WWF as the Big Boss Man, symbolized the real-life corrections officer turned wrestler's problems in the WWF. He couldn't work as the character who made him famous up north, and WCW had no idea how to get him over. After initially calling Traylor the boss, the company was forced to change his gimmick. After filming a series of vignettes of Traylor training with citizen watchdogs known as the Guardian Angels, Traylor took on the persona of the Guardian Angel, which immediately flopped. WCW repackaged him as the original heel gimmick of Big Bubba Rogers' gimmick, but after mixed success, WCW had him use his real name, Ray Traylor. Traylor's WCW career was a mess, and he returned to the WWF in 1998, joining Vince McMahon's corporation faction of heels. Number 8. Jake Roberts. Jake Roberts was coming off an incredibly successful run in the WWF when he saw an opportunity to step out of the ring and work behind the scenes in the WWF creative department. According to James Dixon's book Titans Sinking, Vince had previously told Roberts he would use him on his writing team when the time came for him to wind down his in-ring career, so when a position became available due to Pat Patterson's post-sex scandal resignation, Roberts saw it as an opportunity to get what he sought. McMahon told Jake he couldn't do anything as he wasn't hiring anyone for the position, out of respect for Pat. According to Dixon, McMahon knew Pat would soon be back. He was on hiatus rather than gone, and he didn't want to replace him, but Jake was none the wiser and treated the snub as a personal affront. An angry Roberts then contacted WCW's Kip Fry, then worked on a way to get out of his WWF deal, but once certain to destroy his relationship with the WWF. Just minutes before his match against The Undertaker at WrestleMania 8, Roberts demanded McMahon issue his release or he wouldn't work the event. McMahon agreed and Roberts signed a reported 7-figure per year deal with WCW. Roberts went to work for WCW only to find Bill Watts was in control of the company's finances. Watts was looking to cut costs, and he told Roberts WCW didn't have to honor his contract thanks to a loophole. Roberts had to wait 90 days before going to work for WCW, and on the 87th day, Watts reportedly utilized his option to cancel the contract before Roberts could officially work for WCW. Instead, Roberts could work for $200,000 a year or walk. He took the deal, working the much maligned Spin the Wheel Make a Deal match against Sting at Halloween Havoc. Roberts left WCW and worked in AAA and small promotions such as the America's Wrestling Federation and Smoky Mountain Wrestling before returning to the WWF in 1996. And number 9. The British Bulldog. Following the Montreal Screwjob, Davey Boy Smith wanted out of the WWF, so much so that he bought out the remainder of his contract in order to join Bret Hart in WCW. As bad as Hart's WCW run was, Bulldog's was even worse, with him struggling to find a significant role in the company. On top of that, the Bulldog was seriously injured at 1998's Fall Brawl pay-per-view, when he landed on a trapdoor in the ring gimmicked for the Ultimate Warrior to come through later on in the event. He was hospitalized for 6 months with a spinal infection and became hooked on painkillers. Eric Bischoff fired Smith via Federal Express, and Smith eventually returned to the WWF in 1999, but his career was never the same. But there you have it guys, 9 WWE superstars who came to hate their decision to leave the WWE. What do you think of their decisions? What would have come of them had they stayed? Be sure to leave your comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.